This is Stand Up and Speak Up with your host, Walt Grassel, here on the Rockstar Radio Network. Do you have unfulfilled dreams? Are your fears keeping you from leading a more fulfilling life? Well, coming up on Walt Grassel's Stand Up and Speak Up, you'll hear real stories of people who have faced their fears and are now living their dreams. You'll learn how small steps can lead to big successes. Host Walt Grassel was terrified of any form of public speaking and now is doing stand-up. You can too. This is Stand Up and Speak Up here on the Rockstar Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Walt Grassel.
Welcome to this edition of Stand Up and Speak Up. And on last show with N.O. Inwek, I mentioned that I was going to go to an open mic potentially that night, and I did. And I did 5 minutes of stand-up on short notice, and it was fun. And I'm looking forward to going back next week. So wish me luck. I just need to work on some new material. I've been saving joke ideas, but with all the other things I've been doing, I'd kind of set stand-up aside. So I'm looking forward to getting back into it. And this morning I had an interesting incident. I go to the same restaurant for breakfast pretty much every morning, and I ran into a former coworker who I didn't know lived in the area. And he was surprised to see me and said, "Oh, this is where the retired guys hang out." And as we were talking, he goes, "So what have you been up to?" And I said, "Well, I've written a book. I host a weekly radio show. I've been performing." He goes, "Man, you've been really busy." And you know, compared to when I was working, I don't feel the stress of being busy. Maybe it's because I'm doing fun things. So it's just been really good. And I sent him to my website, waltgrassel.com, to look at some of the things I've been doing. And if you're interested in looking at the book, or since you're listening to the radio show, you know how to get the podcast, or if you want to see when I might be performing, just go to the website. And I do need to keep it a little more current, and that's something I'll get to. But of course, I have been busy. Today we're having a very special guest. Melody Keymer Harper, one of the Keymer twins, is my guest today, and I'm really happy to have Melody on the show. She's so nice and so caring and so positive, and she's done a lot of performing, and she also coaches people. So I'd like to bring Melody on right now. Welcome to the show, Melody.
Well, thank you, Walt. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you for agreeing to be on the show. I'm looking forward to hearing your stories and learning from you, since we both share a passion for helping people overcome stage fright. To help introduce you to our audience, can you please give them your history, and don't try and rush through it. Go ahead and explain, your performing history, and then how you've been helping people, with your coaching and teaching and speaking.
Oh my goodness, that'll take the whole hour.
Okay,
No.
maybe just in this sec.
I'd rather hear your jokes.
Well,
Congratulations on that stand-up. That's fantastic. I'm so proud of you, and I'm anxious to come see you.
I'll put the word out there, and I'll definitely let you know when I perform.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, to answer your question, it all started back when I was 3 years old. My twin sister and I were put in a local contest by our mom, and we sang "I Love You," a Bushel and a Peck, and if Marilyn was here, we'd be singing it together. And we won the contest. This was at a local grocery store. And we won this great big huge bag of groceries, and that was fun. We loved it, thought it was super. Mom said, "Oh, aren't they cute out there? Let's do it again." So she put us on all these other contests, and we kept winning. And we thought, "Oh, this is great." We loved it. And then by the time we were 10, we became professional. That means we got paid, started getting paid for things, instead of doing volunteer work and going all over different like convalescent hospitals and different events that we went to, different church functions, different school functions, city community functions. We were all over the place, and we ended up singing in USOs and singing for all the different service bases. Around 10 years old is when it actually hit me that I had stage fright, and I didn't realize that. And Walt, when you're young, you don't have these fears. They
Right.
develop as you get older. Okay, you don't. They're learned. Actually, they're learned. They're not something that you're born with. And So around 10 years old, I remember being on stage with Marilyn, and we were singing a McGuire song, Sugar Time. Do you remember that oldie? Sugar in
No,
the morning, sugar in
unfortunately,
the...
sorry about that.
It's peppy, and I loved it. But there was one part in it where I sang a solo. Marilyn always sang the harmony, and I always sang the melody. It just turned out that way. And there was one part that I was going to sing my solo, and for some reason I just froze, and I could feel panic, just panic. And I think my legs were probably shaking, my hands were getting real sweaty, and I just knew I was not going to be able to sing that solo. And I nudged her on the back, and we are real keen on body language and sensing what the other one feels. And she knew instantly that I was indicating I was not going to sing that solo. Well, I get this nudge back saying, guess what? I'm not going to do it either. And I thought, no, no, no. So I kept punching her, and I poked harder as we were finishing our part. And she would poke back, and my last one poked so hard, she realized, I was very determined. I didn't care if I was going to stand there clapping to an instrumental. And by the way, our older sister actually accompanies on the piano wherever we went as well, which was great. But so she actually realized I wasn't going to sing it, and she pulled it through, and she sang it. I was so relieved, and it was great. But she said, don't you ever do that to me again. She didn't like singing the solos at that time. But that was my first encounter with really getting the fear of being out in front of people. And then later on, I learned through different mentors, because we have a film. We actually are in 4 unions. I belong to Screen Actors Guild and NAFTA, which now is like one, it merged. But Equity, which is the for stage, and then AGVA, that is for musical performance. And so during this period of time, between the time we were 10 and 20, you might say, we were doing a lot of film work. The Mr. Novak Show, that was a TV show with James Francisco's, and then we got the lead pilot for the twin show it was a syndicated cartoon show that was before, but it was made into a program called the Jackson Twins. And we had Dennis O'Keefe was our father in it, who was an old-time actor that was just really famous with John Wayne. And if you remember Lassie programs, do you remember Lassie?
Yeah, I do, actually, growing up.
Jan Clayton was our mother in the series. And it was great. We loved it. It was fabulous. Although at that time, The Miracle Worker just came out with Patty Duke. If you recall, in those days, they had very few TV programs. That's really dating me going back, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I remember that.
Well, she had the Lookalike Cousins show that came out immediately after she won the Oscar for her performance in Miracle Worker. And at that time, they only allowed one police story, one medical story, one comedy, one lookalike. And, well, she got the Oscar, so you know who got the part. So we got the shell.
Oh, that's funny. I do remember the Patty Duke show. What was it, Identical Cousins, 2 at a time or something like that?
Lookalike Cousins, yeah. And we enjoyed it, and we know Patty now. She's really a good person, but she got that part. So we went on, and then we learned a lot of things on the set through our directors and producers of how to really handle those nerves and how to come across convincingly and natural. And the biggest impact that we had was when we were in the movie that's where we got our name actually, Double Trouble, was from being in the movie with Elvis Presley called Double Trouble. And he used to tell us different things about getting up on stage and how he felt and how he could have prepared ahead of time, and that the nerves were really important. If you didn't have those nerves, he said, you're not going to feel like you're going to do a good job. Those nerves are what really helps you. It's just you need to have, you need to control those. It's just like going on any program, and I'm sure you do this, and I'm so proud of you because I know your story really comes from very, very severe stage fright and trying to overcome that. And I think you're doing a fabulous job, Walt. I think you're just doing great.
Well,
and I remember Elvis telling me that very strong thing about really you want to conquer your nerves when you prepare. And so I have a whole thing that I do in my coaching and the sessions that I call the 7 P's to successful speaking. And I'll tell you about that a little later. But with that, part of that was because of what he had told us, and that is how you prepare. And if you really are prepared and you know what you're doing, you just get out there and have fun. And those first minutes really are the most nervous part, but once you get yourself honed in and zoned into whatever anchor you have out there that's going to help you, then it's easier going through. But those nerves are what keep you going and keep you on your high. And then when we did the Johnny Carson show, he is one of the biggest. He was, unfortunately, he's the late Johnny Carson now from the Tonight Show, and he. I remember him saying too, it was hard when he was back in the wings. He gets himself prepared to get out there because he really was a very shy, very introverted, and very shy individual. And it was very hard for him. And like you, he's pulling comedy. He pulled comedy in to make it comfortable for him to get out there and be able to talk to people. And he ended up having a gift with it, which was wonderful. But in his own time, he was very much an individual on his own. He was very more isolated. He wasn't one that got out there and really was overly social. But on the TV, it's like he came into his own realm. And that's what we found from our acting experience, that there's so many people. Now, Meryl and I are pretty much natural extroverts, but a good portion of people are very introverted, and they really need to pep up their energy when they're doing a performance. Well, a big part of it is they get into character. And that's why I think a lot of people go into the acting area, is because they want to feel that there's something special and somebody different than who they are, because they feel so reserved and not connected. A lot of them do. And so that helps them actually overcome their fear, is by doing acting, because they know it's not them. They're putting themselves into somebody else's shoes and being somebody else's part. But for me, when doing stage and doing, let's go back a little bit. When we finished doing the Johnny Carson show, that was my second awareness of the how to overcome that fear by listening to him. And then we worked with Mickey Rooney in a play. We did this on a tour with him over the country. And that was a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. And we were the Gemini twins in that. And there were so many things. Stage is so different than film, because you can stop and take if they get the cut they want. But it's a one-time deal when you do stage. And what's great about stage, though, as you know from being doing stand-up, is that you get the immediate reaction from the audience. And that is so rewarding and so fulfilling, and that just puts like an adrenaline rush into you. And we learned a lot of tips from the professionalism that Mickey Rooney had, the things that he told us too. And these are the things I share in my books, and I share also in my events that I have, that I put on, that is for Star Power Speaking. And just different stories, they're just funny, but they made a difference for me in helping me overcome the different fears I had.
All right, we'll be back after the break with Melody Harper on Stand Up and Speak Up.
Conquering your fears and living your dream. That's what this show is all about. It's Stand Up and Speak Up with Walt Gressel. And we'll be back with more after these on the Rockstar Radio Network. Get ready for Smart Health with your host, Dr. Glenn Mia. Friday afternoons at 2 p.m. Central on the Rockstar Radio Network. Smart Health is a 1-hour program dedicated to discussions, interviews, and news in the ever-changing world of medicine. Information leads to smart choices, and smart choices lead to a healthier lifestyle. That's the quote of host and broadcast journalist Dr. Glenn Mia, M.D. This magazine-style radio show is a fast-paced program bringing together medical experts, authors, and patients to examine what works and what doesn't in staying healthy. Dr. Glenn Mia is a board-certified physician in pediatrics and internal medicine. His philosophy to wellness starts with an investment. He says proper nutrition, rest, and exercise are the best personal investments to maintaining good health. So join us for Smart Health with Dr. Glenn Mia. Fridays at 2 p.m. Central on the Rockstar Radio Network. Welcome back to Stand Up and Speak Up with Walt Gressel here on the Rockstar Radio Network. The whole purpose of this show is to inspire you to face your fears, because when you do, you open up a whole new world of incredible opportunities. And Walt Gressel should know he took the first steps by joining Toastmasters in 2006. While still struggling, he slayed an even bigger fear and tried stand-up comedy. Now get ready to learn how you can face your fears and change your life. It's Stand Up and Speak Up here on the Rockstar Radio Network. And here again is your host, Walt Gressel.
Welcome back to Stand Up and Speak Up, and we're here with Melody Keymer Harper. And Melody's been telling us about her past, how she's performed, and along the way she's learned lesson after being stricken with stage fright at the age of 10. And then through her acting career, she's picked up some tidbits that she now shares with people. So before the break, you were talking about being on tour with Mickey Rooney with Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum and about that. Why don't you continue, Melody? It's great information.
Oh, thank you. Well, we had a number of incidences with those programs, but then it was later that I learned more in a different direction, which really kind of surprised me. It really kind of honed in on what they had told me and just really resonated more when I had the birth of my first child. And for some reason, I thought, oh, this is great. I love being pregnant, which is, I know, a rarity for a lot of women. But I love being pregnant. And then all of a sudden, I realized, whoa, there's an end to this. I had to give birth. And I all of a sudden went into Panicville. And when I got to the hospital, went into this room, and I'll never forget this. We called her. This is a story I love to tell. People just love the story. I'll go into small detail about it. But there was this lady that we called the Peking Gorilla that came into me. And the reason why is that she was this big burly lady with her hair pulled back like in the movie South Pacific, Bloody Mary. And she was from Peking. And she threw this gown at me. And I was young, and I was having my first child, and my husband wasn't there at that time. So I was in this sterile white room, and she threw this gown at me and said, strip, put your things in there. And she was very brief about that. And all of a sudden I panicked. There was no warm fuzzies, and our family is a warm, fuzzy, huggy, kissy type of a family. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just all of a sudden realized this is happening. I can't stop it. And I just got a little bit of a panic, and women will relate to this. I know you don't, Walt, but women can relate to this. And I just remember starting to unbutton my top, and I turned, and there was a sink there with a mirror, and I could see that just water was welling up in my eyes and just about to flood, loose. And it's like I literally looked back at myself, like almost like an out of body without being out of body, but just looking back at myself. And I said, wait a second, Melody, you have two choices here. You can either panic, and this is going to be a much harder event for you, or you can just relax, go with the flow, and realize there's going to be a beautiful reward at the end. Well, I chose that latter one. And completely snapped myself. But I'll tell you, when I looked in that mirror, the first thing I could see was these invisible, like, numbers put on my chest. I felt like I was in prison. It was the weirdest feeling I'd ever had. But I realized what Mickey had said, what Johnny had said, what Elvis had said, and all my other mentors had said and talked to us. That attitude really is a key thing, your mindset. And so that's a big part of what I discuss in my programs, is how your mindset and your attitude makes a huge difference on how successful you're going to be. And so that really shifted my thinking immensely and helped me with really conquering that stage fright and helping other people. And then people would always say, you're so natural on stage. Just comes natural for you. Well, it comes natural for everybody when they're little, but that fear does set in. But you learn it. You can also unlearn it, and you can control it. And that's what I learned to do over the years through education and teaching my students and teaching my kids, because it is the number one fear out there, is that public speaking. And I love what Les Brown always says. And he says people would rather be in that wooden coffin than be up speaking. And so many people go to their grave with all these wonderful ideas because they are too afraid to expose them and let people out and to bless people with all the things and knowledge they have to offer to the world.
Yeah, it's several things that you've mentioned both in the last segment and now really resonate with me. Let me follow up with a few of them. You mentioned getting stage fright at the age of 10. Even though you had been already performing, and that is kind of a new concept to me. I figured it's kind of a fear of learning a new skill, or when you learn it and you fail, that you kind of decide that, oh, you know what, I can't do this, and so people just give up. And I've talked in the past about the analogy that babies are too young to do that, otherwise most of us wouldn't be walking. And when we go to ride a bike, we kind of get that, I'm not sure if I want to do this, I'm too afraid, but usually we're still young enough that we push through the fear and then we enjoy the success. But then as we get older, we try things, we fail, and then it's easier to just say, I can't do it. But I hadn't really thought of the possibility, like if I make the bike analogy, that you learn how to ride a bike, and then all of a sudden one day you kind of wake up and you're riding the bike, and all of a sudden you get so afraid of falling that you can't ride the bike anymore, that you stop. So that's an interesting insight, that people who previously could speak and have been speaking or singing or performing all their life, all of a sudden can't, they learn to be afraid, or they develop that fear.
Well, and usually that has to do with some kind of a circumstance or situation. And like on a bike, this is something that our parents were very positive with us. And so I think that's why we've always been very upbeat and happy-go-lucky and positive about most everything that we do in our family. It's just that's the way we were raised. And a big part of it was like that bike incident. If you fell off your bike, hey, get back up and get on that bike. You conquer that, you go. So it was always a go-to attitude, you can do it. It wasn't the can'ts. The can'ts weren't in there. But I think when you get with your peers, and that's what happened to us, because Meryl and I did a lot of public entertaining, and then we were on shows and speaking, and we were brought up like the girls next door with the public schools and all, but we still had some people that were a little jealous of the things that we were doing, and it seemed like a special thing to them. It was just what we knew, and we still like being with our friends, and we still like going out and playing and doing the things that all kids do. But for some reason, they felt envious of us and a little jealous of probably the notoriety and the things that we were doing. And so then all of a sudden, we had the fear of how they were going to respond and the judgments that they gave. And that's where it comes in, is when you start thinking about other people's thinking and how they're going to perceive you. Instead of the attitude of, don't worry about what people are thinking, other than you want to go out there, just like coming onto your radio show. I have a little thing I always do before I go on a radio show, or I do a speaking, or I do an entertainment, or I do my teaching, whatever it is I'm doing. I have like a little routine. So I get my energy up, whether it's running up and down stairs or jumping up and down. I'm pretty high energy, but sometimes I like to make sure it's still there. and then I always will do like a little vocal exercise, and then to calm the nerves down as well. But also, I always say a little prayer, because I want to do well for whoever I'm speaking to, whoever I'm entertaining for. I want to do well. I want them to enjoy it, get the message, and be enriched from whatever the experience is that we've had together, have some kind of a connection. And so many people don't do that. So many people, and I was guilty of this too, you're worried about what people think. How am I going to be, looked at? Am I going to be approved of? Or they think I'm too heavy, or I'm not funny, or I'm just not good, whatever it is. And that's getting into all about me. That's thinking all about me, instead getting out thinking, what about you? What do they want? They want to be entertained. They want to like you. They want you to come to life for them. That's what they're there for. So they're really, really boosting you. So you really are having advocates before you even get on stage. So it's attitude again, and realizing, get out of yourself and get into them, pleasing them, and thinking about what does the audience need, what do they want, and make it all about them, not yourself.
That's great advice, and I know that was one of my hang-ups, was the fear of being judged. And even though one-on-one I kind of had come to grips with, I'm okay being me, yet when I would get in front of people to speak, I guess that was one of the things in my subconscious that was tying me up. And I've mentioned before a list of the causes of stage fright, and that's definitely one of them. Something else you mentioned about Johnny Carson and him being introverted, that was me too, extremely shy. And since I've made all these changes in being more comfortable speaking, I've become much less shy in public. So by addressing this fear, it's made me more outgoing, or didn't make me, it allowed me to be comfortable being more outgoing and talking to strangers in the checkout line at a store or whatever, striking up a conversation, or something happens, instead of just ignoring it or pretending it didn't happen, make a joke about it, have a little fun with it. And that, and then something else you said about Johnny Carson, about getting into a character, that's something that I really wanted to explore in this conversation. It occurred to me while I was taking a shower this morning that, sometimes when we do things like that or gardening or whatever, our subconscious just throws things out there. And one of the things I'm torn or confused about has to do with authenticity.
Yes.
And as a speaker, you need to be authentic, because if you're one way on stage and another way off stage, people might not resonate with your message. It may appear phony, but then again, you can be a higher energy version of yourself on stage that allows you to engage the audience and entertain them so that they hear your message, but still be you. Does that make sense? And do you have any tips or any thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. It's so important. That's a big thing I talk about in all the different programs I do, is be you. Don't try to be somebody else, because we all are unique in our own way. Just bring out your own personality, whether you're introverted or extroverted, and in the different environments, because you've had to pep it up being an introvert, which takes a lot more energy because you are trying to be higher energy than you would normally be. So that's very draining. Be very draining. It's rewarding, but draining. It doesn't mean you're going to all of a sudden be that way forever. It's when you're on stage, you're still being you, but you're just amping it a little bit. It's just like turning the volume up. You're putting the volume up for your energy level. Being on stage is totally different, as you know, than like being on a radio show or being one-on-one, whether you're working at at the corporate meetings that we have, a board meeting. Maybe I'm doing a training for a few people, or maybe I'm in a large group where I'm talking to hundreds of people or entertaining for thousands. It makes a difference where you are and how you're going to use that energy. Because if you're one-on-one, your energy needs to be high enough, but not over the wall. And on stage, it's big. It needs to be huge. Otherwise, small movements and small little gestures and small little sounds, small little voices, not going to meet all those huge amounts of masses out there. And so it depends on your audience and the situation you're in. But, be yourself. Always be authentic. It comes through if you're not.
Okay.
I have something that I usually say, go straight to their hearts first, and then comes from deep within inside you. Okay, so if you going straight to their hearts first comes from deep within your heart, giving them messages and your passion, because they're not going to, Jonathan Sprinkles?
I've heard the name. I don't know. And we're coming up on a break. So
that goes fast.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we pick up with your comment on Jonathan Sprinkles after the break. I'm here with Melody Keymer Harper on Stand Up and Speak Up on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Conquering your fears and living your dream. That's what this show is all about. It's Stand Up and Speak Up with Walt Gressel. And we'll be back with more after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you to be a rock star. Get ready to rock with Rock Talk and Craig Deswald, and learn how to achieve rock star status in your industry. Every Tuesday afternoon at 2, 1 Central on TogiNet.com. Craig Deswald is the creator of the Rockstar System for Success. Craig will share easy tips and strategies on how entrepreneurs and businesses can use outside-the-box marketing strategies to stand out from their competition. Each high-energy show will feature interviews with celebrity rock stars as well as business rock stars. For more on Craig, the show, and the Rockstar Marketing Boot Camps, check out the website, CraigDeswald.com, so you can learn how to be perceived as an expert and celebrity in your field, so more people come to you to buy your services and products. Then, get ready to be a rock star with Rock Talk and Craig Deswald. Tuesday afternoons at 2, 1 Central on TogiNet.com.
Get ready for Wise Up Radio, leveraging your learning, leadership, and legacy with Donna Kimbrand, the Edgy Evolutionary, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, here on the Rockstar Radio Network. If you're an entrepreneurial leader or visionary, stay ahead of your game with insights, tools, and strategies that give you the thought leader's edge. Each week, join Donna and her guests as she'll ask the edgy questions, help you discover game-changing shortcuts to better thinking and learning, how to explore the ripple effects of leadership excellence, and how to create your life as a living legacy, where the legacy you leave is the life you live. As thought leaders, you need strategies to help you enjoy the confidence and thrill of riding the wave of rapid change. For more on Donna, check out her website, GameChangerThinking.com. Then join the conversation and sharpen up your wits on Wise Up Radio with Donna Kimbrand, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, here on the Rockstar Radio Network. Welcome back to Stand Up and Speak Up with Walt Grassel here on the Rockstar Radio Network. The whole purpose of this show is to inspire you to face your fears, because when you do, you open up a whole new world of incredible opportunities. And Walt Grassel should know he took the first steps by joining Toastmasters in 2006. While still struggling, he slayed an even bigger fear and tried stand-up comedy. Now get ready to learn how you can face your fears and change your life. It's Stand Up and Speak Up here on the Rockstar Radio Network. And here again is your host, Walt Grassel.
Welcome back to Stand Up and Speak Up, and I'm here this week with Melody Keymer Harper, one of the Keymer twins. And before the break, we were talking about being a more high energy you when you're on stage, but how you want to match your energy to the size of the room. You don't want to be the same energy level when you're talking to 1,000 people or you're talking to 10. You need to adjust your energy, but it definitely needs to be more energy when you're on stage than when you're talking to somebody one-on-one. And before the break, Melody was going to tell us a story about Jonathan Sprinkles. Go ahead, Melody.
Yes, Jonathan Sprinkles is she's a wonderful person. I love him dearly. He's a good friend, and he actually is one of the top college speakers around. And a big part of what he says too is that building that relationship, and this is about positivity and being authentic. Be yourself, no matter what energy level you're using. Be yourself and connect with that person. So he says people will not want to hear you or listen to you until they get to know you, that they know you care about them. So they're not going to listen to you until they know you care about them. And that, again, is, get out of yourself and think about them. They love stories. They like to know you're real. They're human.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something, too, if I may say this. Doing interviews, because that's one thing I teach people, too, is how to do auditioning or how to do interviews and how to nail them so that they really do well in them. And so many people don't realize how first impressions, how important those first 3 seconds are, and then your first 3 minutes are going to either win a person or lose them. And it's how your appearance is, number one, how you greet, number two, and the way you talk. And I just remember somebody saying to me, if somebody is doing something in the interview that maybe they're crossing their arms or they're being a little quiet, just naturally and easily, without making it an obvious gesture that you're trying to do this, just kind of cross your arms a little bit. And if they're speaking softly, then go ahead and speak softer, because it makes them feel more comfortable. If you come in and they're very introverted in one-on-one in an interview, and you're coming in and you're just really bouncy and full of energy, and boy, I'm going to do well at this interview, you just need me on this, then it's overpowering them. So watch the body language, which is so important. As we know, body language is 93% of what people really connect with, even more than the words. 7% of really are words that we use. Even though they're important, people pick up your message from your body language. And sometimes the words and the body language aren't congruent together. So you need to watch how you're acting and your gestures and what you're doing. And so watching what other people are doing at interviews makes a huge difference. I have a whole lot of stories and a lot of things that I have done that I've made mistakes that help people not do the same mistakes from interviewing and helping them to do well. It's a skill. It's learned.
Yeah. Okay, and that's, I'd heard that about, kind of mirroring people's body language, and that how I can see how that works one-on-one, and I can also now, with hindsight, more when I've been in an audience than not, that when people come out real high energy to, let's say, a room full of engineers, they immediately disconnect because as a whole the room is kind of introverted. Now that doesn't, but I think the other point might be that you start out mirroring them, but if then you gradually pick up your energy, it will get accepted, and you're likely to bring up the energy in the room as well. Or if you are a serious person and the people in the audience are all really upbeat and fidgeting and lots of energy, if you start out high energy and then gradually bring them down so they calm down and pay attention, does that kind of work that you can actually shift the audience once they get in sync with you? Is it kind of like you get them in sync with you and then you slowly move them to where you want them to best be to receive your message?
Oh, absolutely. Now, that's a different scenario than doing interviewing. Interviewing is totally different. But when you're on stage and you're presenting or conducting a meeting, then you're the one who's in control. So you want to control the audience's emotions and attitudes and feeling. And starting with coming in very positive and upbeat is really a really good way to do that. And so,
okay.
And like you said, keep it up and then pull it down too. So regulate it.
I was just like, one of the things that I do a lot is kind of this cross training or look at one thing and another. And I was trying to, in my mind, bring this mirroring concept from a one-on-one interview to the stage environment. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, that was great. Let's see, where do I want to go next? Oh, I have a question. Can people who are comfortable in one performing venue have a problem in another one, like maybe an actor who's comfortable doing scenes have a problem with public speaking? Or, why do you see that sometimes? And you may have touched on this a little bit before, but maybe we can be a little more specific.
I've seen many actors that I think, oh my gosh, they are so good. They are so skilled at their profession. Their tool is their body and acting. And they're so great at it and believable, and they just seem so sharp. And then I've heard them in interviews, and I think, oh my gosh, they almost don't sound like they have a brain in their head. And then you get others that play these cornball parts, and they come on to an interview, and they seem as sharp as a tack. So, yes, people can be on stage, and because, again, they're getting into that character, and then when they're themselves, they don't feel that confidence. They're lacking confidence in their own ability. They put their confidence in somebody else's facade, you might say. And so that, again, they need coaching. And there are certain people, even your presidents of the United States need coaching. Everybody needs some kind of a coach. Your athletes need coaches to help them. But sometimes we get into slumps, or sometimes we start habits that we need to change, or sometimes something naturally comes on and you'll look and say, oh, that's really good. Keep that up. But you have to keep watching what you're doing and how people are responding. And it's just like when you do jokes, you're looking and you're waiting to hear that response. Did they respond or did they not? I remember when Jerry Seinfeld went off of his show, and then he decided to reinvent himself a while back. And he went to all these comedy clubs like you're doing, and he would take note cards, and he'd have jokes on them. He'd take about 100 note cards, and he would just say one joke after another, just read them off there and say. And if he got a laugh, he kept it in his pocket. If he didn't, he threw it away. He threw it on the floor. And that's what he built his new comedy act on, was seeing all these jokes that he wrote down, what he got for laughs or what he didn't. So we respond by how the audience responds. And they're going to respond to you, too, how you're responding. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and just to maybe follow up on that, when it comes to comedy, and even when it comes with speaking and connecting with audiences, there's a couple of things that influence that. One is it the material? Or let me go in reverse. Is it the delivery? Was I too high energy, too low energy? Were my gestures, my body language, and my voice not congruent? Or if it's my stories or my analogies or the setup of my joke, was it a problem that my audience didn't get that? I've told this story, I think, before about, remember that balloon boy incident where the boy in Colorado, they thought he was in this weather balloon that the parents had made, but it was all a hoax? But the whole nation was focused on it during the day. Well, I made a reference to that evening that should have been funny, and the handful of people that were aware of it were chuckling. But what I didn't realize, that the Toastmasters audience I was in front of didn't listen to the radio or the TV at their job during the day, and while they were commuting to the contest that night, they didn't listen to the radio or the TV. They were listening to music or books on tape. So by not knowing my audience, or to be like if I was speaking or telling a joke to an older, more mature audience, and I was making a reference to some teenage phenomenon that most of the older generation is not aware of, the joke won't go over because they don't understand the setup. So knowing your audience is key, and that's what kind of makes humor hard, right? If you're telling a joke or making stories or giving analogies, how relatable is this to your audience? So.
Well, yes, and you just said something too, which was popped out to my mind right away, is that make sure that you will set up the scene ahead of time and just take no chance that people won't. In other words, there are people that will not know what you're talking about, and some people will. So take no chance left, no stone left, unturned, to make sure that everybody is on the same page with you. So set it up. So if you set it up ahead of time, they'll be on the same page with you. And then also, comedic timing is tougher. That is tough. That's not like somebody can get into a drama role, and the acting may be different for that, but comedic timing is really very, very specific. And if you're not right on the beat with that timing, you're going to miss the punchline, or the joke is not going to be heard or understood. And so timing, that pregnant pause is so important, or the levels of your intensity of your voice, calming down or speeding it up. The levels of your voice all make a huge difference on the impact you're going to have with that particular joke.
Yeah, that's so true. And I kind of, as I was at this open mic doing these jokes that I'd done before, but it was one of those situations where instead of saying, well, I'm not ready, I need 2 weeks to prepare, I'll go up next time, I had reviewed some jokes I'd done like 3 years ago that were relatively timeless. They had to do with customer service, but I hadn't practiced them. The timing might have been a little off. But the other thing is when you're the first person up at an open mic and most of the other people in the audience are going to be performing after you, they're not really paying attention to you. And you really have to get their attention first before you try and tell the jokes. Otherwise, they're not going to go over, right? Again, it's knowing your audience. That would be different than a audience at a paying show where they're there to watch you and they're not really distracted by anything else. So, but again, knowing your audience and what they're about. In the next segment,
that's the key. The big key to it too.
Okay. In the next segment, because we're coming up on our next break, I can't believe how fast this time is going. That'll be our last segment. Are you going to be able to give us like an overview of your 7 P's to successful speaking?
Oh, sure.
In a few minutes?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Okay, great. Stay tuned for the 7 P's to successful speaking with Melody Harper on Stand Up and Speak Up.
Conquering your fears and living your dream. That's what this show is all about. It's Stand Up and Speak Up with Walt Gressel. And we'll be back with more after these on the Rockstar Radio Network. Join us for Legends. Just Ask Us. Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern here on the Rockstar Radio Network with co-hosts Jody Stork and Sherry O, best friends for more than 40 years. We'll take you on an exciting journey every Tuesday morning. You'll get to hear interviews with wild, wacky, and winsome guests who are making a difference in the lives they touch. You'll get to hear what inspired them to reach their goals and to create their own legends. Tune in to get your own ideas on how to live a life without regrets and leave your own legacy. When you reach the end of your life, do you want to be one of the people that are glad that they lived life without regrets? Or one of the people who wish they had left a legacy? Jody and Sherry are glad they did. They're legends in their own minds. Just ask them. It's Legends. Just Ask Us. With your host, Jody Stork and Sherry O. Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern, here on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Spirituality and wealth. Are you keeping them separate?
on the Spiritual and Wealthy Show. Every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, Deborah Atienne Wilson, known as the Intuitive Spiritual and Wealth Coach, enjoys kicking the old mindset to the curb that life needs to be spiritual or wealthy, when you can actually be both. Listen to the only spiritual and wealthy show for Deborah's playful, practical bottom line, cutting-edge wisdom to help you create the life you want and the life that you deserve. What does prosperity mean to you? How do you feel about being wealthy? Deborah's Spiritual and Wealthy Show is about thinking and feeling differently about prosperity and wealth and how they are one. By being more playful about the ideas of spirituality and wealth and not taking ourselves so seriously. The Spiritual and Wealthy Show will support you through Deborah Atienne Wilson's raw, authentic, and tell it like it is, trademark radio style. Heard every Wednesday here on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Welcome back to Stand Up and Speak Up with Walt Grassel here on the Rockstar Radio Network. The whole purpose of this show is to inspire you to face your fears, because when you do, you open up a whole new world of incredible opportunities. And Walt Grassel should know he took the first steps by joining Toastmasters in 2006. While still struggling, he slayed an even bigger fear and tried stand-up comedy. Now get ready to learn how you can face your fears and change your life. It's Stand Up and Speak Up here on the Rockstar Radio Network. And here again is your host, Walt Grassel.
Welcome back to Stand Up and Speak Up. And every week, this hour seems to be the fastest hour of my week. The time just goes by. I'm here with Melody Harper, and before the break, we teased that we would be talking about the 7 P's to successful speaking, a process that Melody has created. So can you please share with our audience the 7 P's?
Oh, yes, thank you. I appreciate that. It's sharpen your public speaking skills with the 7 P's, and those 7 are prepare, practice, present, with purpose, persuasion, positivity, and a powerful message. And this is a big part, like we were, learned in the past. My sister and I learned from working with all these celebrities that we've had over the years, and then through education, is that if you're not prepared, you are not going to do well, because your nerves basically are because you're not organized and you're not prepared. So being prepared at least eliminates a lot of that pressure that you have. So preparing means get everything in order, all the ducks, and I go through all the details that you need, because it's more than just preparing your presentation. It's everything. It's your body. It's everything. And then practice. It's like location for real estate. It's practice for speaking. And then present your presentation. And with that, you want to know what your purpose is. Your purpose needs to be so solid and with a mission that is for whoever you're talking to. Like you said, relate to that audience, because you want to connect with them. And then persuasion. You want to have a persuasive story. All the things that you do. I love the things about selling as far as it says facts tell, stories sell. They love stories. Audiences relate to stories. And being upbeat and positive. Who wants to be a downer? And so positivity is the key to making a huge difference, and that has a lot to do with your attitude. And then giving that powerful message that gives them content and value that they can take away from them, that they say, I want more of you. And then give them more. And that's what I do. I give them the 7 P's, and then I have my Star Power speaking program that I do, and I incorporate those 7 P's within that program. And in that program, we do things like you were doing improv. We do things like improvisation, role-playing, experientials. I have a special guest celebrity on there that I work with, and I help people really overcome that fear of public speaking. And I use the NLP techniques, neuro-linguistic programming, which is a total different realm. It has a lot to do with your psychic and your thinking about your unconscious opposed to your conscious mind, making a difference for you. And so I do that, and then coaching individuals individually, I really help them with individual 7 P's on their own to help them put their presentation together and feel comfortable.
Great. Those are great advice. And yeah, I can relate to every one of those. The preparation and the practice. A lot of time people wait till the last minute to prepare, and if your mind is going to start going blank and you don't really have the material down, then when it starts, then I think everything just starts to snowball, right? Whereas if you had really, really prepared and you know it, the chance of you forgetting it is much less, so you're less likely to do that. But the minute you don't prepare, then you get up there and you stumble, and then once you take that first stumble, then you get nervous, and then you get even more forgetful, and the part that you knew a second ago goes away. And then practice, I've been really guilty about not practicing enough for my speeches. Do you have a ratio or any guidelines about how much practice? I've heard a saying that says, amateurs practice till they get it right, professionals practice till they can't get it wrong. Do you have any things along those lines, an amount of time?
Well, it depends. It depends on the subject that you're talking about. It depends on the length of time. It depends on how much content you're going to use. You will feel comfortable knowing. If you feel like you really know your material, then that's enough. It's like my students in the college that I teach these career classes and academic planning and do personal and academic counseling with them. Mm-hmm. I will tell them normally it's 1 hour that you have in class time, 2 hours study time for 1 hour in class. So if it's a 3-hour class, then it's 6 hours of study. And some people need more. Some people need less. It just depends on the individual. It makes a difference. I'm going to tell you a little thing about preparing, which I thought was really something. Years ago when I was PTA president for the middle school, at the time for my kids' middle school, we did a fashion show, and I was the narrator for it. And I really prepared. I was like 3 o'clock in the morning writing all these little scenarios for each of the kids that were getting up and modeling these little outfits with their department stores. And I really had it down. But what I didn't know, you can over-prepare or you can prepare incorrectly. So there's a right way to do things and an incorrect way, the wrong way to do things. And I know that I did this whole sheet of paper with everybody on it. I mean, I looked at that sheet. It was like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. And I got up on stage and started narrating, and I got so nervous. All of a sudden, I looked at my page, and it became nothing but a mass blur of little black ink splotches all over the page because I didn't put little bullets instead, like 1 word, 2 words that triggers what you're going to talk about. Then it became like I was trying to read everything, and my mind went blank, and I couldn't read it. And all of a sudden, I had to wing it. Thank goodness I was prepared enough in my mind, and that was a lesson for me. I knew what I was going to talk about. I looked at the child coming out, and I started talking about what they were wearing and made it more personable. And it became a lot better, and I realized there was a different feeling I had when I was doing that. So the personal feeling is a touch is much better.
Yeah, and I know that anytime you're in front of an audience and you're reading, it becomes more monotonic. I think that's just how our bodies work. I learned a little trick that I'll share with you and the audience. If you take your material and instead of having it like in a paragraph form, you write it more so it looks like a poem, and you break up a sentence without punctuation, but everything that you could say in one breath, you put on a line, and then you list everything that way. That way you can look down, capture the thought, then look up and deliver it without reading. And you can just work your way down a script. I got to MC a couple of events back when I was working. I volunteered to do it for stage time, and I found that by doing that, I could maintain my enthusiasm and yet still stick to a prepared script. We had our communications write material, and we worked back and forth and actually putting jokes in there and having it be funny, and I had a great time doing it, but it made it a lot easier than trying to read in a paragraph and keep where your place is and not keep your head down buried in your script. So that's just a little tip that I got.
No, that's so true, and whatever works best for you is what is the best thing to do. I know that usually like 2 to 3 words on there really is a good trigger, because you should know your material enough that if you see those, I know what I'm supposed to say about that when I see that. So 2 to 3 words to 4 words is good.
Excellent. Yeah, it just helps get if you practice it and you know it, that allows you to just finish the thought. It's mainly keeping your thoughts in sequence.
That's
Great
true.
tip.
There was I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was say that makes me think of something else. As far as if something does go wrong, go with it, play with it, and just let it flow off your back, and the audience will be okay too. I was in a fashion show for when I was PTA president of the high school. We were in a fashion show, and I was wearing one of these outfits that had buttons on it. Well, somehow I buttoned it in the front, and when I went out there, the person that was narrating, who happened to be the person of the department store, was talking about it and says, "Well, she's got it on backwards." Well, I was going out as PTA president. A new person was coming in as PTA president, and she was following me, and that panicked her. And I got out there, and I just thought, well, what can I do? I'm already out there. I'm modeling this outfit. So I just turned around and said, well, I guess you can see me coming and going. And so the audience, you just make a fun thing out of it for the moment and go with it, and the audience goes with you too. And it became funny. She would not go out after that. It panicked her. She would not go out.
Wow. Yeah, when things go wrong, those are actually great comedic opportunities. We're running out of time, and I want the audience to know what you've got coming up and how to get in touch with you. So in the remaining 2.5 minutes or so, please share with the audience things that you have going on. I know you've got some books coming out and how they can get in touch with you, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that opportunity. Yes, we just launched yesterday. We just launched my book, Ready, Aim, Influence, that I co-authored with 79 of us were co-authors with that, including the richest man in the world, Carlos Slim, and James Malinchak, Mike Cohen, and a lot of big hitters are in that book as well. So I'm proud of that book. And then another one that's coming out at the end of this month, Quantum Leap Your Life. There's 15 of us that have chapters in there about our special expertise, and that's coming out. And then in the next couple of months, my personal book, Star Power Speaking, will be coming out. And the event I'm doing for Star Power Speaking, so that you can overcome that fear of public speaking to convey your message with confidence, whether you're on stage, whether you're one-on-one, or in your life, period. It's going to help you overcome that fear. And that's going to be in either February or March. And so you can go to my website, and you can see the different things I have going on to learn more about me. And it's being revamped, so hopefully in the next couple of weeks it's going to be up and running. But it's melodykeymer.com or melodykeymerharper.com. That's MELODYKEYMERHARPER.com, or also starpowerspeaking.com. And go there, and when you go, put your little name and information in there, and I'm going to give you a free gift telling about those seven different secrets I have for those P's.
Great. Thank you so much, Melody. You've been a great guest. I've learned a lot, and I've really enjoyed sitting down to speak with you for this hour, and it just flew by so fast. I learned a lot, and you've provided some great information, and I look forward to your book when it comes out, the one on the Star Powered Speaking. And I did buy your other book yesterday.
Well,
I downloaded it from my Kindle app. So thank you so much. This has been Stand Up and Speak Up. Thanks to Jay, who produced the show, and to Melody, my terrific guest. Talk to you next time on Stand Up and Speak Up.
Thank you for being a part of Stand Up and Speak Up with your host, Walt Grassel, here on the Rockstar Radio Network.